Hello, today I'm going to talk about tracking glucose. This is one of my favorite tools. I consider it a biohack because if you can stabilize your blood sugar, I think that you're going to see a lot of progress, whether your goals be weight loss, weight gain, better sleep, less inflammation, mood disorder improvement or recovery, detoxification, all of this. You will have more success if you're stabilizing your blood sugar. So actually, as an intro to this topic, I want to share that during my carnivore healing journey, started in May of 2019, I was in an emergency room. They told me they had to remove my colon, hook me up to a feeding tube. I was 69 pounds at 5'6", and that's when God really twisted my arm and he said, you've got to give up these keto foods, because it had become an idol. And it turns out a lot of the foods I was eating contained oxalate, which is an anti-nutrient. So that was really just a turning point for me. The hypoglycemia definitely stopped. I was getting hypos into the 30s. My blood sugars were all over the place. That stabilized. However, I was still seeing high numbers, especially in the morning, all the way up to like 104. And this went on for a good 7 to 8 months, almost a year. And actually my goal at the beginning of 2020 was to have blood sugars never above 90. And sure enough, it did stabilize. The state of my central nervous system, my lack of muscle was causing some insulin resistance. So part of this is to be expected. The healing journey is not linear. You'll hear people say this all the time, and it's such a good thing to remind yourself sometimes it's not going to look perfect, but you're still headed in the right direction. So when my blood sugars stabilized, I noticed this next level of healing. Like I said, it was a next level of healing. So the first things I noticed, within the first 2 weeks, I had major energy and mood improvements. But there were still days where I woke up and I was in pain. There were still days where I felt like I was going backwards. And once that blood sugar started being a flat line, like always 85 or so, which it still is, that's when I noticed another level of healing. I have entirely reversed chronic Lyme disease. I have reversed over 10 autoimmune diseases. I've reversed diverticulitis, gastroparesis, slow transit colon. I've reversed chronic CDiff, which is what almost took my life. These are things that a lot of people call uncurable. I've reversed mood disorders. All of this is attributed to more stable blood sugars. Is it everything? No. Is it a big part of it? Yes, definitely. Gastroparesis has very much to do with blood sugars. Diabetes and gastroparesis are something that occurs generally together. Your vagus nerve will function differently when your blood sugars are like this. And your vagus nerve has a lot to do with your digestion. So I'm just pointing out examples that your blood sugar stabilization is so important. I care less about the number and I care more about how stable it is. I care more about how many fluctuations are you having throughout the day. I want minimal fluctuation because every time it goes up and then it comes down, that causes some degree of inflammation. Sometimes we need that. Bodybuilders will purposely spike their blood sugar, right? Because that's going to drive that sugar into the muscle, but they have insulin sensitivity, so they're using that to an advantage. Even so, it can be inflammatory. And you don't need to do that to gain muscle. I gained 65 healthy pounds without carbs. Blood sugar stabilization is huge. And this is why using a glucometer can be really helpful. Just like tracking your macros, I've made videos on tracking macros and how it can be beneficial, how it doesn't have to be always long term. No. But what you can measure, you can manage. And that includes blood sugar. So what I like to see is nowhere under 70 and nowhere above 85. 85 milliliters per decimal, I think I said that right. I think that would be 4.0 in the other conversion. Let me know below if I'm right, but around 85 is the highest I really want to see it. And this is based off of not just my own experience or my experience with clients, but research that I have done. PKD in Hungary, this is the number that they want to see it at, no higher than 85. I've heard from multiple different people on podcasts saying around 85 is really optimal. I don't like people sitting around 70 or below 70, but I will say that everyone's different. Kelly Hogan is an example that comes to mind. When I watch her stories and she's sharing her blood sugar, it looks low to me. But she obviously is doing great. She is running on fat. I personally, I start to get cold. When my blood sugar is around 70, I can sense it. And it's not that I have hypoglycemic symptoms. I feel very calm. I don't get shaky. But I do feel a difference. And so it does mean that you're lower in fuel. If you consider my lifestyle versus someone like Kelly Hogan, I do CrossFit 6 days a week. I am very active. So I think that makes more sense as to why my body would appreciate a higher number. But again, everyone's different. There are people who are dealing with epilepsy. You're going to want those really high ketone numbers, which would also probably mean a lower glucose number. Those are the exceptions, but I'm just trying to give you guys a range between 70 and 85. I personally believe is optimal. Again, I've said this before, but this is my YouTube channel, so I'm going to give you my recommendations based on my own healing journey, my research over 15 years of experience with keto, and then my experience in being a health and life coach full-time since 2020. These are the numbers that I find to be the sweet spot, but everyone's different and I don't know everything and I'm still learning. So when your blood sugar starts to get pretty low and your ketones get really high, yes, that feels awesome. It almost feels like you are high, but it can also raise your cortisol and adrenaline. And that's something that my body picks up on. My central nervous system is very sensitive to that. I took Adderall for 13 years, over 13 years. I literally ran on adrenaline for over 13 years. So when I start getting to that place again, I can feel it and it feels better to kind of back off. Sometimes it's better to have more moderate ketone numbers. You're still burning fat for fuel, but you're keeping that cortisol lower. So this is contradictory to what a lot of people think. So it's about balance. If there's someone who's dealing with hypothalamic amenorrhea, I'm really going to make sure that you're eating enough protein. You need protein. You actually need your blood sugar to be a little bit higher sometimes. So don't be afraid of that. But above 85 into the 90s, 100s, I think that's where more people are struggling and they don't like that. That's when I would say you're probably still healing, or take another look at what you're eating. Could be dairy. So the lactose can raise your blood sugar a little bit. Could be that your fat to protein ratio is off. Not to say that protein is converting to glucose because protein's the problem, but to say that maybe you should find a ratio that supports your body at a systemic level so that you don't have to be afraid to eat protein. Check out my video on gluconeogenesis to dig into that deeper. So there are so many reasons that you can be seeing higher blood sugar numbers. Being dehydrated will definitely elevate your blood sugar. Sodium is essential for insulin sensitivity. Poor sleep sets us up to be as insulin resistant as a type 2 diabetic. There are studies that show this. So just to wrap up this video, if you do decide to get a glucometer, then they have pretty affordable ones. I use the Contour Next One. Got it from Walmart. It's very dependable. It's used by diabetics, and the strips are the more expensive part. I don't think you need to test ketones. I think that if you watch your blood sugar, you're gonna see if it's stable, that means you're insulin sensitive. And if it's under 90 or if it's at 85 and never above, you know you're burning fat. You are burning fat. So the ketone meters are really fun, but not necessary. I do have a discount code for a monitor. It's called the Fora. I will put my discount code here, but this is more expensive, and it does track, it actually can track cholesterol, uric acid, blood sugar, and ketones, which is really cool. But if you're looking for a more cheap option just to do some troubleshooting in the beginning stages or with your blood sugar, I recommend the Contour Next One. So that one's really affordable. You can get it from Walmart or Amazon. So times to test your blood sugar. In the morning, fasted, this is your baseline. This is what your blood sugar is normally. You can see a higher blood sugar in the morning because we have a natural flux of gluconeogenesis and cortisol. This is what wakes us up. We actually want that to happen. But it should come back down within 30 minutes to an hour if you are seeing a rise. If you're seeing a dramatic rise every morning, I would recommend actually eating a little bit of pure fat upon waking. this is going to offset that cortisol response, and it's going to lower it. It's going to keep your body in a supported place. And I'm talking about just a nibble of pure fat. Try it out. And then the other times that I personally test are 2 hours after eating any meal. You can test before a meal if you want, but I really think if you get your baseline, a general idea of where you're sitting, then 2 hours after every meal is fine. And then if you can just keep a log for a week of your numbers, that's when you can sit down and you can see trends. And you'll start to notice, wow, when I eat this meal, I definitely have a blood sugar spike. Or, wow, I didn't eat as much that day and I definitely got into a low. And then it set me up for binging the next day because I was starving. You can learn so much. What you measure, you can manage. So these are my recommendations on tracking your glucose. I do think that it's a helpful tool. If you are the type AAA personality like I am, I don't recommend getting a continuous glucose monitor. I did get one and I was just totally consumed. It was too much data for me. I'm such a geek and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to test everything. I get it, I think that's really fun, but I can't do that for myself. I need to be productive, and it's not necessary. So know your personality and don't get hung up if your numbers are higher. Just be excited that you're gonna learn. You're gonna figure it out. Take your time every day, take little notes, keep a log, and look at the trends over time, over 1 week, 2 weeks. And then you can start to extract data that makes sense. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and let me know what your blood sugar issues are. I would love to hear your success stories or even what you're stumped on. Just don't give up.